Can you explain kind of how your app works?
I had been working in the financial planning industry for a while, working with very high net worth clients, people with a lot of money, a lot of income, the typical person that a financial advisor would go for. And so I really wanted to work with people more my age, kind of in my situation, people that are getting started, don't have a lot to invest, really getting started on their retirement path and working towards all that. And so that's kind of when I decided to launch this app. So the app basically, the goal with the app is to replace what a financial advisor would do when you meet with them. So
Hey guys, welcome to the Realized Gains podcast. We're on episode 70. I'm Stephen Tran. I'm an Oregon and Washington realtor, and I own multifamily and short-term rentals.
Hi everyone, I'm your co-host Jordan Lee, a mortgage lender based here in Portland, Oregon, licensed in 9 states. I invest in single family, and we have a duplex together as well.
Yeah. And hey Jordan, who did we interview today?
We interviewed Matt Schuberg, which was a super interesting interview. He's the CEO and founder of a company called Planned.
Yeah, I love it because I'm coming from the fintech world. We had a lot to discuss about how he built his platform.
Yeah, he started as a financial advisor, right, and then built
an app.
built an app to like do financial advising.
Yeah, so he went the entrepreneur route, but he definitely pushes making good financial decisions, and he didn't even start his business until he was in a good financial spot. So for those who want to invest in real estate or start their own business, obviously they want to be in a good place. You should definitely listen to this episode. Hey guys, welcome to the Realized Gains podcast. I'm Stephen Tran.
And I'm your co-host Jordan Lee, and we're super excited to have Matt Schuberg on the show with us today.
hey guys, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Matt, do you want to just give us a quick background? Where you're from, kind of where you're at now, and sort of the steps you took to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So born and raised in Southern California, currently live in Orange County. So pretty much spent my whole life in California. Most of my background's in wealth management. So, worked for a couple independent financial advisors, worked for Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan Chase. So kind of like the whole breadth. I've worked with like really small teams, couple much larger firms, and
Like the standard
also
CFP path, or
yeah. So I'm a certified financial planner, have my MBA as well from a school locally down here called Cal Lutheran University.
Okay.
And and then I had a random stint doing real estate crowdfunding. So I started a business looking to raise capital to invest in self-storage properties. So did that for a little bit, but found out that raising capital was a lot harder than I thought it would be. And so kind of went back into wealth management for since then, basically. So
And when you were doing when you say you're in wealth management, were you like a financial advisor managing client portfolios, or what did that look like?
yeah, a couple of different roles. So worked for a couple advisors. Pretty much all of them were managing clients, helping them manage investments, put together a financial plan. I had a couple different roles. So some of the positions I was more on the investment side, managing the portfolio. And then a couple other ones I was kind of putting the plans together. Once I became a certified financial planner, got really heavily involved in the financial planning side. The reason I kind of ended up going that route was, in my opinion, I kind of realized that a lot of the value that we were adding on the investment side was hard to pitch. Beating the market is very difficult. And so I started pivoting towards what I thought was a lot easier to show the value of, which was the financial planning side, helping people manage their budget, put together an emergency fund, help them buy their first home, that side of things. I felt like it was a lot easier to explain the value on that side. And so kind of really pivoted a little bit from the investment side towards that side. And so that's kind of where I am today.
Yeah, can you explain kind of how your app works? I mean, like, is it just general out to the public, or can you just kind of give us a
So to give a little background on kind of how I got to this company now that I'm the founder of Planned, I had been working in the financial planning industry for a while, working with very high net worth clients, people with a lot of money, a lot of income, the typical person that a financial advisor would go for. And so I really wanted to work with people more my age, kind of in my situation, people that are getting started, don't have a lot to invest, really getting started on their retirement path and working towards all that. And so that's kind of when I decided to launch this app. So the app basically, the goal with the app is to replace what a financial advisor would do when you meet with them. So the app, once you sign up, it's you're prompted to fill out kind of an intake form, like a discovery form, asks you about 10 to 15 minutes worth of questions. And based on that, it'll generate a financial plan for you. So the financial plan is kind of an overall score that you get out of 100. So there's 10 different categories. It's like net worth, income, expenses, savings, debt, credit, insurance, retirement, estate. So those are kind of the categories that it covers. So very comprehensive type of plan. And based on kind of your inputs and your financial situation, it'll create that score for you, as well as assign you different tasks based on what you should do next. So it gives you kind of a very clear step-by-step checklist of what to do next.
Okay. And, so I used to work for a fintech company doing, that did a robo advising, and they would do kind of like that intake as well and kind of get your risk tolerance. Obviously, because they're going to be investing your money into the market, whether it's bonds or index funds or individual stocks. With this end, what does that score do, since they're planning their the money that they have in their bank account, like you said, emergency funds, things like that. They're not in particularly investing, but kind of just putting their money in safe places. How does the scoring help to kind of guide uh, basically the platform for them?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's kind of like a holistic view of your overall financial situation. So really the purpose of the score is kind of to tell you just where you're at and how you're doing compared to your age, your income, your family size, all those sorts of things. So it's really looking at, okay, based on where you're at in life, your age and how many people you have in your family, like this is the average that a person spends. How do you compare to that? This is the average income. How's your income compare, your net worth? And then, some of the other things like, do you have the proper insurance coverage? Do you have an estate plan in place? Is your investment portfolio optimized? And kind of just like big picture stuff on those sides of things. And then based on where you need it, where there's areas of improvement, that's kind of where the tasks come in and tell you, okay, first you should do this. Like obviously stuff like get your emergency fund in place. If you're spending too much money compared to your income, like how do we cut your expenses? And then kind of just prioritizing from that, going down the list and really trying to get to the point of having everything in order. You're covered from any potential risk you might come into. Your insurance, you have the right insurance in place. All those sorts of things. That's kind of where it goes next. So it's a lot more than just the investment side. Currently, we're not managing investments, so it's just on it's more like a coaching
So
process.
it
But
gives you like a picture of your financial health, so to speak, and it kind of helps you, make sure that certain things are in place. Sounds like.
exactly, yeah. Just I think one of the main goals with financial planning is really to ask you the questions that you might not have thought to ask yourself. So
Mhm.
really making sure you're covering all your bases, getting a picture of where you should be. There's definitely I've had a lot of people ask about the app, kind of comparing it to Mint, or Mint's gone now, but comparing it to other budgeting tools out there. What makes the app different than YNAB, You Need a Budget, or Mint, or all these other budgeting tools? Obviously there's like hundreds out there now. So I think the big difference is really the advice piece of it. And so not just helping you manage your money, but telling you what you should do with your money. So for example, like one of the questions that I got most frequently when I was working with clients was, okay, I have this much money, I'm making good money now, where do I put it? Do I prioritize saving for a house, or how much should I be putting to retirement? um, am I in the right investments? Do I have the right things I'm investing in? Am I diversified enough? Those types of questions are really what the app focuses on. Should I pay down debt first, or should I invest? Or those are the types of things it tries to help answer.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So, like a lot of these questions and answers, are they algorithmically like based and respond that way, or do you have an actual person sometimes for those tricky, like, what should I do in this situation answers?
Yeah. It's very algorithmically based. So the app conditionally based on, for example, it'll ask you how much do you have in your emergency fund, and then based on your monthly expenses, it'll tell you whether or not you have the proper amount. So it's kind of based on your answers to the questions, it'll decide which tasks get assigned to you, and obviously calculate your score based on that. We also do offer a different level. So the basic plan is currently $9 a month. So that'll get you access to the app. You're able to connect your account so that it'll pull in all your transactions, automatically update your account balances so you can kind of track your net worth over time, create a budget. And then there's a level beyond that. If, obviously, I don't think technology will ever fully replace working with a human being and getting that advice from someone, being able to ask them very specific questions about your own situation. And so there's a coaching level above that, which is $49 a month. So that gets you access to an actual human being that you can kind of have unlimited access to ask those questions and get a little more specific on your situation.
And just kind of taking a step back here, what did that transition look like when you were, okay, I'm financial planning, I want to help, the more everyday folk, I want to be able to help my friends that are in a similar position as me. But how did you transition from doing, financial advising, you've got an understanding of what your finances look like, you've got a regular pay, what you're doing, to like building a company? How did that, did you like build the software yourself, or did you hire somebody, or?
Yeah, it's quite a few steps. That's a big jump, I'll say, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it started with the idea, obviously, and trying to figure out how to put this together. Especially in the financial services industry, there's very heavy regulation on what you're allowed to do, what you're allowed to say, the advice you give. So it was really difficult to work on a business like this while working at another firm. There was a big conflict of interest. They didn't want me giving advice without their oversight on everything. And so that was kind of the biggest hurdle at first. And then from there, it was like obviously creating the app. And so I kind of have a good story on that I'm sure is a very common story for any founder that's tried to build any sort of technology app. But I was looking into the development side. I don't have a technical background at all. And so really figuring out, okay, how do I develop this app, get it going, and ended up finding a development agency that I hired to help me build out a prototype for the app, and very expensive process, and built it out a couple months and ended up getting the product. And it basically was just like clickable screenshots. And so got quoted like some crazy high amount for building out the actual product, which maybe I should have communicated more, but I thought that's what I was getting in the first place. And so realized that route was just going to be far too costly and expensive to do. So that's when I actually came across a tool called Bubble. So it's actually a no-code tool. These have become a lot more popular lately, but basically it's built on a traditional development platform, but it's very similar to a lot of the website builders out there nowadays, like Wix or some of these other platforms that make it very easy to build. And so basically over the last year or so, just really self-taught myself on how to use this platform and develop an app, and have kind of just been learning my way through it and figuring out, but it's been a very rewarding and fun experience.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. So it's like you just built it from, like, if someone's building a website, they use Squarespace or something now.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can use that to build a software of your own. And so now, are you still having to go in and like do hot fixes and stuff like that, or do you have like a team?
Oh yeah.
That...
Yeah, definitely, constantly testing it out. I will say Bubble, it's much easier to learn than like a traditional development path. Like I think they've done studies on it. It takes maybe like 3 or 4 times less time than it would to learn a traditional program. And so, but there's definitely still a steep learning curve. I mean, if you've built on like Squarespace or Wix or any of these other website builders, they're very like drag and drop, very simple to use, but it has that kind of functionality, but takes it to the next level where you're actually building like a functional app. So it's not really comparable to a website, but it's much easier to learn, and there's so many resources out there nowadays to learn these types of platforms. But yeah, constantly having to test it out, try new things, always adding new features to the app. So it's kind of just a constant learning process, and never finished project.
Oh yeah.
And at what point were you just like, okay, I don't need to have my set job anymore. I don't need my W-2 job. I can move forward with this. Like, when did you feel comfortable?
Yeah, still in the early stages, so I'm always looking for other ways to make money outside of this. So, any sort of like project I can take on, development project, I've actually been looking into taking on some of those just to bring in extra income that I can reinvest into the business. So, kind of just keeping myself afloat through whatever I can do. So, any sort of like part-time thing or consulting job. I was still doing some of my like financial planning, meeting with clients. So was focusing on that a little bit, but yeah, really trying to invest as much time as I can into the app, and just trying to get more people on board, and getting feedback and building that out. I think that's kind of the focus now. But anything I can do to, I look at it, any money I can make outside of the app is just money I can put into the app. So that's kind of my focus now.
Yeah. Can I ask what platforms is it on? Is it on like mobile and like desktop browser?
So it's only a web application currently. You could use it on your phone. It's built for your phone as well, so it'll feel like an app, but it's all through the website. You just have to go to the website to sign up and log in. But the Bubble platform is actually building out their mobile app editor as we speak. They're hoping to launch it this summer, so I'm really hoping that I'll be able to launch an actual app in the App Store sometime later this year. That's kind of the timeline.
Oh, great. And then in terms of like kind of building at scale, have you gotten a decent amount of clients on the platform yet and going, and can it handle all of the people? I mean, I know there's a whole back end, and Bubble seems like it's a no code front end. And this is like maybe like technical jargon, but and does it give you all the functionality that you need to kind of build what you need? Because there's sometimes very specific actions you want to take that maybe a no code tool, which has very specific actions built into it, will allow you to do.
Yeah, I'd say that was my biggest question when I was first looking into platforms to use, for sure. Obviously, I wanted something that could scale with the business. I didn't want to build on one platform and then have to migrate everything over to something else. And I did a lot of research into that. And basically everything I looked into, I've been told, and in my own personal experience, Bubble is able to handle. And so, Bubble, like I said, is built on a traditional development platform. It's using all the same kind of code base. The server is on AWS, so it uses Amazon Web Services for the backend. And so basically it's as scalable and as performant as you build it. So it's kind of something that's a constant learning process. But from my experience, everything I've said, oh, I would like if the app could do this, I've been able to figure out a way to build that. And so I really haven't come across any limitations so far. I know that's a big focus for them, is really on the kind of like the enterprise side, making it so that much larger firms can actually use this platform and just improve their development speed and reducing costs on that. So I think it's a platform that's here to stay for a long time, and I plan to keep the app on that platform for the foreseeable, unless some big change happens. I don't think, I'm hoping that isn't the case, but they have something like over 3 or 4 million apps built on their platform at this point. And I don't know what the largest size is, but I know there's apps with hundreds of thousands of users on the platform. And so I'm confident that it'll be able to handle whatever level I can get it to.
And so I found out about your company obviously through my company, right? We're offering your service to any of our clients, which as a free service, which is super cool. Is that kind of a business model? Was that happenstance, or is that a sort of intentional business model that you like, of like kind of looking for other companies that will provide you as an employee benefit or like a client benefit type situation?
Yeah, it was something I had thought about, but obviously the primary focus for me was really building the app for going directly to the consumer. But I was approached by Darren at your firm, and we've kind of had a lot of discussions recently about building out a platform for financial professionals to help work with clients, manage their clients, really get like deeper insights into their clients' financial lives and really add value through the app. And so him and I have kind of been working together on building out this side of the platform for, to me, it was kind of a value add for the user as well. So once you go into the app, another differentiating feature compared to other apps is you're able to kind of see your whole financial team from within the app, collaborate with them, start a group chat, communicate with your CPA, your real estate agent, your mortgage lender, your financial advisor, whoever needs to connect with each other, they can all kind of connect through the app. And those financial professionals can actually work with their clients, assign them tasks, kind of help hold their clients accountable to whatever task they need them to do. So that's kind of something that has kind of spawned out of this collaboration and conversation. And so definitely building out that side of the platform as well.
Okay, great. And then just like I said, I want to go back to making that jump of like just kind of like, being saying like I'm gonna go build this app, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. Do you have like, was there a point of where like you felt extremely confident, like I can do this and I'm gonna go do this, and that like I'm gonna go learn this brand new skill to go build my own business? Like,
For example, he was for a while doing both jobs
yeah,
at
like
the same
I was doing a
time.
little bit of both, but can you tell the point where you're just like, you know what, I feel safe enough in what I'm confident in to do this?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me, I mentioned that I had a previous company that I had started. And, when I started that company, I was 25 and it was my first business. I was so excited to jump just full into it and quit my job, had about a year or two's worth of savings to kind of really get that business up and going, and learn the hard way that there's a lot more costs involved in the starting a business than I realized there were. And so I learned a lot from that, kind of took that experience, and this time really focused on making sure I have money and kind of making that transition, trying to hold a job as long as I can before really transitioning fully into this. I think that makes it a lot safer. If you have enough savings or you're already bringing in income, then I think that's kind of that's when you'd start evaluating whether or not you should leave whatever you're doing before to really focus on this full time. But in my experience, my recommendation, especially when I talk to clients who are interested in starting their own business, I try to tell them, try to make it as reduce your risk as much as possible and keep the other job as long as you can until leaving that job would actually make you more working on the business. That's kind of the approach that I've taken with this company. And I just think you always hear about how many businesses fail. And I think a big part of the reason is they just jump in, they don't have any money coming in, and they eventually run out and have to go back to their full-time job or whatever they were doing before. And so my approach, I've taken a much different approach, much what I consider safer approach. And so trying to keep whatever income you have as long as you can, if possible. I think that's kind of the approach I've taken this time. And it's definitely, it takes longer that way. Obviously you don't have as much time to work on the business and everything, but to me, this is something I'm very passionate about. I'm able to do in my spare time. That's kind of how I transitioned. And so, yeah, I think that was kind of the biggest thing I learned from my first business, and has helped me a lot with this one for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, you're like the best advocate for your app of having that emergency fund,
Yeah.
having your savings, having your financial situation put in the right place. And you mentioned, for our generation, whether it's Gen Z or millennials, in a sense of they need the help. Can you kind of explain where you're seeing an opportunity in our generation of financial education?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm in my early 30s, and so I think I'm at the age kind of where most of the people I know are starting to build a family. They're pretty established in their career, and so I think a lot of people are starting to get to that point where they're not just paying their monthly expenses every month and just getting by, and that whole situation. They're having kids. They're realizing, okay, I need to start having a plan in place for my future and really figuring out how to provide for my family, make sure that they're protected and that they're able to survive if something were to happen to me. Those are kind of the questions they're starting to ask. And they're starting to make more of their job and say, okay, I have all this money, but I'm not sure where I should put it. And so I think that's kind of the typical person that comes to the platform, the typical person that's kind of like really starting to realize, okay, I need to start getting my financial life in order. But, I definitely, the pricing that I came up with for the app is really trying to make it as accessible for anyone, really. And so even I think there's a big need for people that even are living paycheck to paycheck or barely getting by and trying to figure out whatever they can to pay their bills or build a savings account. I think any of those people could benefit from financial advice. And that was kind of the big reason for me with building the app and transitioning away from working with those higher net worth clients. Obviously, I think anyone, there's things they can be doing better with their money, and there's obviously a lot of value with what a traditional financial planner might do with even someone who has millions of dollars. There's a lot that they can optimize. But for me, I wanted to really focus on that market that, in my opinion, needs the help the most, but typically either can't afford it or the advisors aren't interested in working with them because they don't have any assets to manage. And so that was kind of the big realization for me, and figuring out a way to offer that to kind of the everyday person.
And yeah, and is there any specific challenges that our generation has that other generations haven't, like Generation X before us or the baby boomers? What is it, like
Yeah,
student loans
I,
or you know?
yeah, I think there's quite a few at this point. Especially in the real estate market, obviously home prices have just been insane. You have interest rates going crazy high compared to, especially, people my age. It's basically, this is almost the highest it's been in our lifetimes. I mean, we've dealt with historically low interest rates for a long time, the most of my life. And so just figuring out, and then you have inflation on top of that. There's a lot of things going on with just figuring out general economics and where the market's at. And I think a big thing, buying your first home is, a very common goal for most people, and just finding a way to do that. I think a lot of people either aren't able to get to that point or end up overextending themselves with their home, or buying it too early and becoming house
Okay.
poor, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Speaking of
Yeah. So
that, what do you
I
what do
see
you
that.
recommend? Yeah, what is the general consensus, or what do you often recommend about percentage of income that you try and tell people to keep your monthly payment at?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty standard on that. I think the biggest thing is really making sure you're evaluating how much of a mortgage you can actually afford, and keeping it to a level where you're still able to save outside of paying the mortgage.
Yeah.
I think, obviously there's a big benefit to owning a home, and it's a great asset to have. But what I commonly see, and my sister's been going through this, trying to buy a home in Southern California for like the
Yeah.
last 5 years. It's just been
Oh,
crazy. And she's great at saving, but obviously staying patient has been very tough for her. And so I think the biggest thing is really making sure, if you do buy a home, you're not putting all the money you have towards the down payment. You still have an emergency fund. Once you do have the home, you're still able to afford saving in other places. You don't want to not be able to save for retirement anymore, or save for whatever other goals you have. Making sure you're kind of still in a position to protect yourself in case anything were to go wrong. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I don't know if there's a specific percentage. I think it kind of depends on the person and their situation. Obviously, like 50% or higher would be pretty steep. I wouldn't generally recommend that, but in general, it's more to me about, okay, how much are you putting towards your home? Because that's the thing too. You're kind of, when you're doing that, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. You're not very well diversified if all your money is in one asset. And especially growing up in California, Southern California, you hear it all the time. Oh, well, real estate always goes up. And then, yeah, I hear that advice a lot, and I generally try to advise people that's not always the case. I think a lot of people my age, especially 2008 was they were pretty young, like we were 18 or so at that time. And so they haven't really had any sort of downturn, anything similar to that. And so, yeah, I think the biggest thing is just making sure that you have other protection in place. You're still able to have your emergency fund while affording your mortgage, and still able to save in other places, so that you can really diversify your portfolio. I'd say that's kind of the biggest piece of advice that I usually give.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that that rule, the 30%, like it should be less. You shouldn't be spending more than 30% of your gross income on rent. I mean, how much do you abide by that outside of everything else?
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good recommendation. Another thing too, I think, and I'm sure you guys deal with this as well, but I think a lot of people I hear the expression all the time about like they're tired of throwing away money renting. And there's other costs involved in homeownership that I think a lot of people don't think about, such as like repairs, maintenance. You have property tax, insurance, all those different costs involved. And so I think just really explaining, giving my approach is really educating people on here's what it would cost, here's all the things you have to think about before making this decision, and then here's the pros and cons of each decision. Now the decision's up to you, obviously, if you want to move forward, but just making sure they're aware of kind of what they're getting into in the first place. I think that's the biggest thing that I try to provide for people.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, that rule, the 30% rule, I don't know how you can get there unless you're living far below your means at this point. Yes,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, would you, and that thought of like seeing where interest rates are and where payments and everything are, um, in terms of risk and future planning, I mean, would you be okay if somebody like kind of went far past that with the expectation that they maybe refinance, or is that too much of a risk?
I I would say it totally depends on their individual situation. I think interest rates, if that's the only reason you're waiting to buy a home, I don't think that's a good reason. There's always things can always change. The market can change. You can refinance. There's a lot of different options there. And I think no matter how crazy real estate prices get, there's always opportunities. There's people who are in situations where they need to sell for whatever the case may be, divorce or someone passed away and they inherited a home and they just don't have the time to manage it. There's always potential good opportunities that you can find in any market. It obviously just gets a lot more difficult to find those opportunities when the market is like this. But um, I tend to steer away from general percentages for everyone because I think again everyone's situation is different, and I don't want to like avoid the question, but I'd have to I try to keep it as personal as I can, and depending on your situation, it could make sense. But yeah, generally we'd advise trying to stay below this amount if you can. That's kind of the approach I go for.
So let's talk a little bit about your platform and how, I guess, in terms of like getting onto a platform, like I always think about these things of just being like a lot of work to enter all my information in and one more thing to log into and
Yep.
yeah, so maybe just help us understand some of the ways you've maybe made it easier or more fun to interact with your application.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a huge concern for people is just another app they have to download and go into regularly. And so one of my main approaches to that is really trying to make it as comprehensive as of an app as I can. There's a lot of features that I plan to add in the future to really try to minimize or consolidate some of the other apps you might be using. So that's kind of one approach to that is just to try to give you one central place where you can kind of manage everything with your money. And then, besides that, it's really just trying to simplify everything as much as possible. I I've worked with a lot of clients and I realized that there's a lot of people out there that not only might not know a lot about, might not have a lot of financial literacy or education on the financial side, but also don't have the time. That's a common reason they'll end up hiring someone to manage their money or whatever the case may be. It's not necessarily that they can't do it themselves. It's just they don't want to spend the time doing that. And so really focusing on stuff like the integrations to link your accounts, make things automatically pull in, get categorized automatically. You can create rules for transactions so they're categorized certain ways, trying to simplify it as much as I can. And
So like links
there's
to your checking account, you're saying, and then
exactly.
it'll track
Oh,
your
are you using Plaid?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Plaid
Yeah.
API.
Plaid. So very familiar platform to a lot of the other tools out there. But there's other things that I've worked on and still trying to add to that to just make it simpler. For example, there's a weekly email that you get that kind of gives you a high level summary of your net worth, how it's changed since the week before, your spending for the week, and then any tasks you have coming due for that week. So you'll get that weekly email. It kind of just keeps you on track without having to really do anything. It'll also be able to show you kind of your budget and how much you've spent, how much you have left for the month, just things like that to try to make it take less time to manage your money. That's kind of the primary focus with the app is allowing you to really get a holistic view of your financial situation, but without having to spend hours every month managing it. I think that's definitely the focus. And I'm always trying to add more opportunities and features that can allow you to do that and make it simpler for you to manage.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're able to disclose, what is the next big feature for Planned to make it easier?
There's a couple that I've been working on. I'd say the next big one is really launching the investment side. There's some other smaller features planned, but right now, like I mentioned, we're not managing investments. So you would, general investment advice on like portfolio allocation, stuff like that, the platform can help you with, but actually managing money, that's kind of the next step. And then obviously the mobile app is a big one. There's definitely feedback of people that would like to have the app on their phone. So that's kind of, I'd say those are the two big next steps. But there's other big things that I do plan to add in the near future. For example, monitoring your credit, being able to check your credit score and get alerts through the app. That's another big thing that I will be implementing pretty soon. And then just trying to add as many features as I can. I think one of the selling points that I try to explain to people is, since this is a startup, it's an early stage company, anyone who comes on the platform does have a lot of any feedback they give is very valued, and I'm taking in all feedback I can possibly get. So you have a lot of influence on features that are added, changes that are made. If you go to any of these other larger companies, I think it's unlikely that they'll kind of hear you out on an individual level. And so that's kind of a big selling point for me is, look, I want to build this platform out for my user. It's intended for you guys. So any features that get brought to my attention, I'm very willing to listen to those and trying to make the app as valuable as I can for the people on the platform.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super curious about the investment side. I mean, I'm assuming you'd have to add more to your intake in terms of figuring out how risk averse they are, how risk tolerant they are, and then like how do you choose the investments after that? Is it like I said, for us at the with our robo advisor, we have it kind of based on your risk profile. Like, if you're very risk averse, maybe it's more bonds and things like that. And then if you're very high risk, as I am, you know, and maybe more individual stocks or at least like aggressive index funds. So what is how is that going to look for with your platform?
Yeah, I kind of touched on this before a little bit with the investment side. I do take more of a passive approach to investing. So trying to minimize fees as much as possible, whether that's through management fees that you're paying or through just general trading for example, like a mutual fund. Obviously, the more trades you're doing, the more you're getting taxed on those trades. And so trying to find funds that are much more passive, like index funds, those types of things are really going to be the majority of the focus. And then kind of like you mentioned, very similar to that, having different models based on your risk tolerance. I think that would kind of be the main approach. But then, I'll definitely have kind of a level above that for more customization. If you want to own individual stocks, all that sort of stuff will be available. But that's, very early stages on that. So I will definitely have more information on that in the future. But yeah, that's kind of the plan as of this point.
Yeah, no, like I said, when I was working for Future Advisor, there's a lot of things with the SEC, especially when you're taking people's money in and then
Yep.
obviously allocating it for them. I don't remember the specifics because I chose not to care as an engineer. But all I knew is that we had to be very careful and had lots of regulations to kind of follow. So
Oh yeah. Yeah. When you're managing money and managing investments, it's a whole different level of compliance and regulatory issues you have to deal with. And that's kind of where all the expenses come in for a lot of these funds and management companies. And so but yeah, it's definitely something that obviously I think a lot of people will value. And again, just trying to make it more of a comprehensive platform where you can kind of consolidate everything into one place as much as possible. I think that's kind of the most obvious next step, is managing investments and then building from there and kind of offering some of those other features I mentioned.
nice. And can you kind of talk about your marketing and what you're doing there to kind of get your business out there?
Yeah, marketing, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in.
Yeah.
That's definitely, to me, constant daily learning experience. So
I feel like you're either the engineer or the marketer. It's usually
I try to
not
be
both.
both. Yeah, but it's hard.
Unless you're this guy.
Yeah, I'd say I'm somewhere in the middle. So, I get kind of like built out the engineer side, but definitely wasn't my background. But as far as marketing goes, just I think the main thing is really trying to talk one-on-one and have conversations with people as much as possible. Like I mentioned, I'm very open to feedback and really just trying to learn from people what they're looking for, issues they're having with other platforms. That's definitely had a big influence on the app and kind of what it's become. I've had conversations with prior clients about they've worked with some of these other tools, but kind of felt like they needed something that goes beyond those apps and gives more advice and tells them what to do with their money rather than just helping them manage it and create a budget. And so those conversations have been really helpful as far as building out the features of the app. But beyond that, just trying to get the name out there, doing stuff like this podcast, reached out to quite a few like content creators to try to just get honest reviews of the platform and see what their thoughts are. But kind of what stemmed from this conversation with your company, Jordan, has been building out the professional side of it and trying to get more professionals on it on the platform, that they have clients who already trust them. They recommend this platform. It's kind of a way for them to collaborate and communicate with each other. And there's already that level of trust there. Obviously, as a newer company, just building like that brand awareness is a big step, especially when it comes to people's money and asking questions that involve their most personal financial situation. So the more people that I can get promoting the app from people they trust, that's kind of been the big focus for me. But doing some paid advertising, just testing that out, and blogging, content creation, the education piece is a big thing for me. So kind of maybe spreading myself a little too thin, but just kind of trying everything out and seeing what's the most beneficial.
Is there a certain number of subscribers that you're like trying to hit, or that makes it, minimum viable level, or something like that you're targeting now?
I have targets in my head. There I don't have a super formal goal on that. I wouldn't say. It's more just, I'm more focused on the process and the systems I have and kind of just having a consistent daily routine that I follow. If I reach out, if I do these things, it should eventually lead to the traction that I'm looking for. I think that's kind of I have a lot more control over that side of it than I do how many people actually end up signing up. And so I try to focus more on that and the systems that I have in place rather than how many people are signing up for the platform. But you know, obviously the more the merrier on the platform. So I don't want it to be a huge influx all at once. I want to make sure I kind of like build slowly and can manage. I don't want there to be an issue with not being able to keep up with all the support that I need and stuff. But yeah, I'd say that's kind of the focus, is building slowly, but eventually bringing on other members of the team, other developers to try to build out the platform quicker and offer more features to users, and then building out like kind of different coaches or financial planners to help manage clients too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm curious. I mean, you said building out the team, that all costs money. So, are you open to like VC money down the line? Are you looking for potentially an acquisition? Like, what is your end goal with the company?
I don't see an acquisition in mind. That's not really a goal of mine. The platform I want to build out. VC is something I will consider, but trying to bootstrap it as long as I can. To me, I've gone through. I've talked to a lot of VCs with my prior business and kind of been involved in that space a little bit on some other personal projects, but I want to really keep it focused on the user and what's best for users. I don't want to get investors involved too early, especially with like the valuation side of it. To me, the more I can build it out on my own, the more value I'll get if I do bring investors on. And so I want to keep it to where I have, kind of an ego thing too, but making sure I kind of keep control of where the direction of the company and it's a big part of the reason for me that I wanted to have my own business, is making sure I'm the ultimate decision maker and I don't have to answer to someone else or get approval to make changes, make decisions. So I think that's kind of one of the things that makes the app and the company a lot more nimble and makes it a lot easier to pivot is I don't have to get approval from investors or make sure they're okay with it before I do anything. It's up to me and I'm going to start going at it right away. And so that's a big focus for me. I think I want to try to build it by myself as long as I can, but depending on the situation or if it gets to a point where it would bringing on outside money would really help the platform scale a lot faster, then that's something I'll consider at that point. But not really a focus for me right now.
No, I love that. I mean, I listened to a podcast recently with the Basecamp founder, and he talks about bootstrapping as long as you can. People who accept. There's a lot of companies that accept their VC money and can get a little complacent when they have the money to hire just anybody and everybody.
Right.
And obviously, you can when you get that big influx of money, maybe that's kind of that sigh of relief that you can just kind of relax.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
focusing
Yeah.
on
There's
your
definitely a
goal and your
piece of
vision,
that.
I think
Oh,
over.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that it always appeals to me that companies and people that are focusing on their goal and their vision and not just trying to build something that they can sell for a profit. Because I mean, what's the? It's
Money's
just
nice.
yeah, the money sounds good, but like it's not a product I'm going to be as interested in, right?
Yeah. For me, this has been a passion of mine for a long time, really helping people with their money. And I I think about that a lot where if I were to sell at some point or bring on other investors that kind of like a board of directors that kind of made the decisions on the direction of the company and it started steering in a direction I didn't intend for it to, that would devastate me. And I don't know, I feel like I would regret that in the future. And so yeah, I would like to keep the decision making control of the company for the long term and really focus on helping out people and them being the one that I'm really focused on helping rather than investors or going public and dealing with that. It's just to me it can be a lot of distraction too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's the entrepreneurial journey, like you mentioned. I think not saying that the money is not important, but it is about having the control in your life. And if you're building something you're passionate about, hopefully the money will come. So
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of added stress involved when you bring on outside money too. I mean, you mentioned you can get complacent, but at the same time, those investors obviously want their money returned to them plus some. And so, there's a whole level of complexity involved in that. And you're dealing with you're not just managing your users and the platform anymore. You're dealing with investors and making sure they're happy. And it kind of just you can get pulled in a lot of directions at the same time. And so I think that can get messy and trying to avoid that if possible. I'd like to build it out as much as I can.
I was going to say, I've been at plenty of companies that have lost investors' money. Just a little bit of crying. It's okay. You'll get over it and let's move forward.
Yeah, I'm the if I owe someone money or anything like that, it's like my number one priority, and I have to. So I think that would just overwhelm me or make me worry about. I have to make sure I'm giving them everything back. So yeah, I'd like to keep it just to myself. So if anyone gets hurt, it's just me for now. So, but yeah, obviously eventually want to grow the company and have a team and build it out. But yeah, we'll see in the future. But that's kind of the plan for now.
I love it. Like I said, I'll find the link to the podcast I heard with the Basecamp founder, and I'll send it to you. I think it'll really speak to you. But if somebody was like somebody of our age, Generation Z, or what are we now? Millennials?
Millennials.
Yeah. If someone from our Generation Z or millennials, was looking for advice on how to get started, kind of planning their financial future outside of just joining plan, how would you kind of first guide them to get started?
Yeah, I think the first steps are really just getting organized with your money and really sitting down, putting everything together, figuring out where you're at currently and really like where you want to go from there. I think those are kind of the first two steps, really organizing everything, making sure you know where your money's at, what it's invested in, and then from there, kind of just building out a plan, figuring out, okay, what do I want to accomplish? What are my top goals? Prioritizing those, putting together, more specific goals, smart goals, having a timeline, amount you need, figuring out, okay, if I want to reach this goal by this date, how much would I need to save monthly to hit that target? And then kind of putting together, I think, a budget is a very important step, at least starting out to figure out how much can I realistically afford to spend, or in order to hit those goals. I think that's kind of the first step. And then of course making sure you're protected in case of any unexpected event. So building out your emergency fund, paying off any high interest debt. Obviously that can be a big detriment to people and make it really difficult to get out of the situation you're in. And then kind of having the right insurance in place in case anything does end up happening, making sure you have health insurance, you know, life insurance if you have kids, especially. Those sorts of things are kind of the basics. And then from there, it's building on that and optimizing things, making sure you're maximizing your match at your company if you get an employer match. Just taking advantage of the different things that are available to you, no matter what your situation. And then, you know, there's a lot of advantages to having your own business or investing in real estate. Those are kind of the two big next steps, I would say, for most people. You're relatively limited on what you can do, especially from a tax perspective as a W-2 employee. And so looking for ways to either have some sort of side hustle that you can use to deduct things or create more income, and then investing in real estate and really optimizing, making your money work for you as hard as you can. I think those are kind of where you go from there.
Great. No, I love that. And if people are learning, wanting to know more about your business and how they can reach you, what would be the best way to find you?
Yeah, so the website's the easiest place. So the website is Get It Planned. So GETITPLANNED.com. That's kind of the easiest way. Yeah, and you know, happy to provide my email if anyone wants to reach out directly, has questions. It's just matt@getitplanned.com. So happy to speak with anyone. Like I said, I'm very open to feedback, always looking for ways to improve the app and add more value to users. So can always reach out to me directly that way too.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to trying it out.
Yeah, same here. Thank you again so much. We really appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to talking with you again soon.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. It's great talking with you guys.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, see you, Matt.